The Stoic doesn't try to defeat you. He defeats himself. The modern world teaches you to measure yourself against others. Success is framed as dominance, visibility, and victory. Strength is often confused with aggression. Control is mistaken for force. In this environment, Stoicism is frequently misunderstood. It is assumed to be cold, detached, or weak. In truth, it is none of these. Stoicism is demanding. It is inwardly severe, and it asks more of a person than most ideologies ever will. The Stoic does not attempt to defeat you. He does not argue to prove superiority. He does not chase admiration or fear irrelevance. His attention is directed elsewhere. He is occupied with a more difficult task, governing himself, while others exhaust their energy trying to bend people, events, and outcomes to their will. The Stoic works on his judgments, his reactions, and his desires. This difference is subtle, but it is decisive. Most human conflict is born from inner disorder. Anger that seeks an outlet, fear that looks for something to blame, desire that demands immediate satisfaction. The Stoic recognizes this pattern and refuses to participate in it, not because he believes himself above others, but because he understands the cost. Every uncontrolled reaction weakens the mind. Every demand placed on the external world creates dependence. Every emotional outburst hands authority to chance. Stoicism does not promise comfort. It does not offer escape. It offers clarity. It teaches you to see what belongs to you and what does not, and to stop wasting your life fighting the wrong battles. The Stoic path begins with a simple but uncompromising decision: to stop being ruled by impulses, fears, and expectations that were never under your control to begin with. From that decision, everything else follows. Most people believe they are struggling because the world is difficult. Stoicism begins by questioning that assumption. The Stoic does not deny that life contains hardship, injustice, and uncertainty. What he challenges is the idea that these things are the direct cause of inner suffering. He observes, calmly and without self-deception, that distress arises not from events themselves, but from the judgments formed about them. This insight is not abstract. It is practical, and it applies relentlessly to modern life. Every day, you are exposed to forces you do not control: economic pressure, social expectations, other people's behavior, political instability, random misfortune, and the steady erosion of time. Most people respond by tightening their grip. They try to manage opinions, predict outcomes, secure approval, and eliminate risk. When these efforts fail, as they inevitably do, frustration follows, anger builds, anxiety becomes constant. The Stoic sees this cycle clearly and refuses to participate in it. At the foundation of Stoic discipline is a firm distinction between what is yours and what is not. Your opinions, intentions, values, and actions belong to you. The outcome of those actions does not. Other people's reactions do not. The timing of events does not. Health, reputation, wealth, and even longevity remain only partially influenced, never owned. Confusion arises when people treat borrowed things as possessions, when they demand certainty from an uncertain world, when they stake their peace of mind on variables they cannot command. Modern anxiety often disguises itself as responsibility. People say they are stressed because they care, because they are ambitious, because they want to do well. Stoicism does not condemn care or effort. It condemns attachment to outcomes. The Stoic works diligently, but he does not hinge his worth on results. He prepares carefully, but he does not expect the universe to cooperate. When plans fail, he does not collapse inward or lash outward. He adjusts his judgment and this attitude is frequently mistaken for indifference. In reality, it requires constant attention. To respond rationally instead of emotionally demands effort. To pause before reacting demands strength. The Stoic does not suppress emotion through force. He examines it. When anger arises, he asks what belief gave it permission. When fear appears, he asks what future he is trying to control. When resentment takes hold, he looks for the hidden demand behind it. In most cases, the demand is unreasonable. That life should be fair, predictable, or personally accommodating. Social pressure magnifies this confusion. Modern life places you under constant evaluation. Metrics, comparisons, and opinions circulate endlessly. It becomes easy to believe that your value is externally assigned. The Stoic rejects this belief entirely. He understands that reputation exists in other people's minds, not his own. To live for approval is to live as a servant. To fear judgment is to surrender autonomy. The Stoic does not insult others by ignoring them, nor does he provoke them by defiance. He simply refuses to outsource his self-respect. Injustice presents a more difficult test. Stoicism does not claim that the world is fair, nor does it advise passive acceptance of wrongdoing. It does, however, insist on clarity. You may act against injustice where action is possible and appropriate. What you must not do is allow injustice to poison your character. Rage feels righteous, but it rarely improves judgment. Bitterness masquerades as moral seriousness, but it corrodes the mind. The Stoic seeks to act effectively, not theatrically. He chooses reason over outrage, even when outrage is socially rewarded. Loss of control is perhaps the most persistent source of suffering. People fear uncertainty because it exposes the limits of their power. Careers shift, relationships end, bodies age, plans unravel. The Stoic does not seek reassurance that these things will not happen. He accepts that they will. This acceptance is not resignation. It is preparation. By rehearsing impermanence mentally, he reduces its power emotionally. When change arrives, it is familiar rather than catastrophic. This discipline extends to desire. Much of modern distress is fueled by wanting things to be different than they are right now. Wanting recognition, wanting stability, wanting certainty, wanting comfort. Desire itself is not condemned in Stoicism, but unexamined desire is considered dangerous. Every desire contains implicit demand. When that demand is placed on the external world, dependence follows. The Stoic trains himself to desire only what aligns with reason and virtue, because these cannot be taken away. Control, in Stoic terms, is internal coherence. It is the ability to maintain alignment between values and actions, regardless of circumstance. A person who cannot control his temper is not powerful, no matter his status. A person who cannot tolerate frustration is fragile, no matter his intelligence. The Stoic measures strength not by impact on others, but by stability within himself. This approach transforms daily life in quiet ways. Insults lose their sting because they no longer threaten identity. Setbacks lose their drama because they are no longer interpreted as personal failures. Praise loses its intoxicating effect because it is recognized as temporary and external. What remains is a steadier mind capable of deliberate action rather than impulsive reaction. The Stoic does not claim immunity from difficulty. He claims responsibility for his responses. This responsibility is heavy, and many avoid it. It is easier to blame circumstances than to govern oneself. It is easier to demand change than to practice restraint. Stoicism offers no excuses. It places the burden of peace where it belongs, on the individual's capacity to judge clearly and act deliberately, even when the world refuses to cooperate. Once the struggle over control is understood, attention naturally turns inward. The most persistent conflicts in a human life do not come from external obstacles, but from unmanaged desire and a fragile sense of self. Stoicism treats these not as moral failures, but as errors in judgment. When left unexamined, they quietly dictate behavior, distort perception, and create unnecessary suffering. Desire is often mistaken for motivation. Modern culture encourages constant wanting, more recognition, more comfort, more certainty, more stimulation. The Stoic observes that desire, when unrestrained, narrows the mind. It trains attention on what is absent rather than what is present. This creates a permanent sense of deficiency. Even when desires are fulfilled, satisfaction is brief. The mind quickly attaches itself to the next object. This cycle produces restlessness, not fulfillment. Stoicism does not demand the elimination of desire. It demands its education. The Stoic asks whether a desire is rational, necessary, and aligned with virtue. Wanting to act justly, to think clearly, to remain composed under pressure. These desires strengthen the mind. Wanting admiration, security, or control over others weakens it. The problem is not wanting something, but tying inner peace to outcomes that are unstable by nature. Ego thrives on comparison. It constantly measures position, status, and recognition. Social environments amplify this tendency, turning everyday interactions into silent competitions. The Stoic recognizes comparison as a trap. There will always be someone with more influence, more wealth, more approval. Measuring worth this way guarantees dissatisfaction. Instead, the Stoic measures progress internally, whether he responded with restraint instead of impulse, reason instead of emotion, integrity instead of convenience. Anger deserves particular attention. It is often justified as strength or moral clarity. In reality, it is usually a reaction to violated expectations. The Stoic examines anger without indulging it. He asks what assumption was broken. Was it the belief that others should behave rationally, that effort should always be rewarded, that life should be fair? When these assumptions are exposed, anger loses much of its force. The Stoic does not deny the feeling, but he refuses to grant it authority over his actions. Fear operates similarly. Fear of loss, fear of rejection, fear of uncertainty, all arise from attachment to outcomes beyond control. The Stoic trains himself to look directly at these fears, not to eliminate them, but to reduce their influence. He reminds himself that losing external things does not damage character. Unless he allows it to, he rehearses adversity mentally, so that when it arrives, it does not overwhelm judgment. Emotional mastery in Stoicism is not suppression. Suppressed emotion returns distorted and intensified. Mastery is clarity. It is the ability to experience emotion without being commanded by it. The Stoic notices the initial impression, pauses, and chooses a response. This pause is small, but decisive. In it, freedom exists. Without it, behavior becomes automatic, driven by habit rather than reason. Social pressure tests this discipline constantly. There is pressure to react, to perform outrage, to display alignment, to prove belonging. The Stoic understands that much public emotion is performative. It seeks validation rather than resolution. He resists being pulled into these currents, not out of arrogance, but out of self-respect. He speaks when speech serves a purpose. He remains silent when silence preserves clarity. Attachment to identity creates another source of conflict. People become invested in being seen as right, competent, virtuous, or successful. When this identity is threatened, defensiveness follows. The Stoic loosens this attachment. He accepts correction without humiliation. He acknowledges error without collapse. His sense of self is not built on being flawless, but on being sincere in the pursuit of reason. Resentment is a slow poison. It arises when people replay perceived wrongs, demanding compensation from the past. Stoicism offers no comfort to resentment. The past is unchangeable. Rehearsing it serves no rational purpose. The Stoic focuses on present action. He understands that carrying resentment only prolongs injury. Letting go is not forgiveness for others, but discipline for oneself. Pleasure and comfort also require restraint. Modern life offers constant distraction and stimulation. The Stoic does not reject comfort outright, but he avoids dependence on it. When comfort becomes necessary for peace, fragility follows. Voluntary discomfort, simple living, controlled habits, moderation, strengthens resilience. It reminds the mind that it can endure more than it assumes. The Stoic's inner work is largely invisible. There are no obvious victories, no external trophies. Progress is measured in quieter ways, fewer reactive words spoken, quicker recovery from disappointment, greater tolerance for uncertainty. This work does not attract applause. It does, however, create stability. A person who governs his desires and ego does not need to defeat others, because he no longer experiences life as a contest. This is the deeper meaning of self-mastery. It is not about denying humanity, but refining it. The Stoic does not become passive or detached. He becomes deliberate. His emotions inform him, but they do not rule him. His desires guide effort, but they do not dictate worth. In this discipline, inner conflict subsides, and with it, the need for external opposition. As the Stoic's inner discipline deepens, his perspective widens. Control and desire no longer dominate his attention. Instead, he confronts the larger conditions of human existence: impermanence, fate, and mortality. These are not abstract concepts. They shape every decision, every attachment, and every fear. Whether acknowledged or not, Stoicism insists that they be faced directly, without denial and without despair. Impermanence is the rule, not the exception. Bodies weaken, relationships change, institutions decay, and circumstances shift without warning. Most people treat this reality as a threat. They cling to what they have, resist change, and experience grief as injustice. The Stoic accepts impermanence as the natural condition of life. This acceptance does not eliminate pain, but it prevents panic. When change arrives, he does not interpret it as betrayal by the world, because he never assumed permanence in the first place. This perspective reshapes attachment. The Stoic values people, roles, and possessions without mistaking them for guarantees. He understands that everything he cares about is temporary, including himself. This awareness does not make him detached or indifferent. It makes him attentive. He acts with care precisely because time is limited. He does not postpone virtue, patience, or honesty for a future that may never arrive. Fate occupies a central place in Stoic thought. It is often misunderstood as passive resignation. In reality, it is a recognition of causal order. Events unfold according to forces larger than individual will: biology, history, chance, and necessity. The Stoic does not argue with this structure. He aligns himself with it. He focuses on choosing well within the conditions given, rather than resenting the conditions themselves. This alignment requires humility. Many frustrations arise from the belief that life should unfold according to personal preference. When it does not, people feel wronged. The Stoic relinquishes this entitlement. He does not expect life to be tailored to his desires. He expects it to be as it is. From this expectation comes resilience. Disappointment loses its sting when expectation is realistic. Mortality sharpens this discipline. The Stoic reflects regularly on death, not to cultivate fear, but to clarify priorities. Death is not treated as a distant abstraction, but as a constant boundary that gives shape to life. Awareness of mortality strips away trivial concerns. It exposes how much energy is wasted on status, resentment, and distraction. The Stoic uses this awareness to live with intention, not urgency. Injustice presents a final test. The world often rewards vice and punishes virtue. Stoicism does not deny this. It also does not permit despair. The Stoic understands that moral worth is internal. External outcomes do not define character. He acts justly because justice is right, not because it guarantees reward. When action is possible, he acts. When it is not, he endures without surrendering integrity. Endurance is often misunderstood as weakness. In Stoicism, it is disciplined strength. To endure without bitterness, without self-pity, without hatred requires mastery. The Stoic does not numb himself to suffering. He refuses to let suffering deform his judgment. Pain may be unavoidable. Corruption of character is not. Uncertainty remains. The Stoic does not pretend to know how events will unfold. He accepts uncertainty as a permanent feature of life. This acceptance reduces fear. When the future is not demanded to be predictable, it becomes tolerable. The Stoic prepares his mind rather than attempting to predict outcomes. He asks not what will happen, but how he will respond. This orientation changes how hardship is interpreted. Difficulty becomes training, loss becomes instruction, constraint becomes a test of judgment. The Stoic does not romanticize hardship, but he does not waste it. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to practice patience, courage, or clarity. Ultimately, the Stoic's relationship with fate is cooperative rather than adversarial. He does not attempt to overpower life, he works with it. Where choice exists, he chooses well. Where it does not, he accepts without collapse. This posture creates a quiet strength that does not seek recognition. The Stoic does not defeat others because he no longer sees life as a battlefield. He defeats himself daily by dismantling illusions, loosening attachments, and refining judgment. In doing so, he becomes difficult to destabilize. External chaos continues, but it no longer dictates inner order. The Stoic path leads to a quiet place, not a place free from difficulty, but a place free from unnecessary struggle. By the time a person has learned to govern his judgments, restrain his desires, and accept the conditions of existence without bitterness, the urge to compete, dominate, or prove himself begins to fade. What remains is not passivity, but steadiness. The Stoic does not need enemies to define himself. He does not measure strength by resistance overcome, but by impulses mastered. While others seek victory in argument, status, or recognition, the Stoic seeks coherence between thought and action. This coherence is not dramatic. It does not attract crowds. It does, however, create a life that is internally inconsistent and resilient. Self-conquest is ongoing. There is no final state of completion, no permanent immunity to fear or desire. The Stoic returns daily to the same work, examining impressions, correcting judgments, aligning actions with reason. Some days are handled well, others reveal weakness. Neither outcome is exaggerated. Progress is measured by persistence, not perfection. This discipline is available to anyone willing to accept responsibility for their inner life. It requires no special status, no withdrawal from society, no rejection of ambition or care. It requires only honesty about what can be controlled and the courage to release what cannot. In a world that rewards noise, speed, and reaction, this quiet discipline is increasingly rare. If you are drawn to this approach, not as a performance, but as a practice, you are already aligned with its core principle. The work begins where attention is placed. Continue to reflect. Continue to observe your reactions. Continue to train the mind toward clarity rather than comfort. This channel exists for that purpose, not to motivate, not to entertain, but to offer steady reminders of a demanding philosophy that asks for less illusion and more responsibility. If you choose to continue walking this path, return here. The work is slow, but it is real, and it is enough.